Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Purple Mic. I'm your host, Erica Nichole Mason, joined by my co-host this evening, Dr. Benjamin Moore. Ben, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much. We wouldn't be the Purple Mic tonight without our fellow crew and cast, LaShonna, Jolon, Jessica, Jamal, and Lewis. How are you guys doing tonight?
Awesome.
Awesome. We have a special guest in the house tonight, Maurion. Maurion, we thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for coming to the Purple Mic. Yes, tonight's going to be an amazing conversation. It's actually, in fact, long and awaited. We put this conversation aside for many seasons as it's been widely anticipated. The topic, hypergamy. And we hope that you all enjoy this conversation. If you have not already, we ask that you please head on over to our YouTube, subscribe. There you can see all seasons 1 through 3, and of course our Instagram, where you can learn about all of our panelists, their bios, and our upcoming episodes.
Maurion is actually one of my best friends. I've known him for probably over 25 years now. We grew up in the same neighborhood, and so he's definitely one of the most articulate, brilliant brothers that I know personally. And so again, we're very, very glad to have him. And he's going to kind of break down what hypergamy is, I guess, starting with the definition and then kind of going into, how that applies in different areas of the man, female, the man, woman, male, female thing. So.
Without further ado, we're going to jump right in. I know this is going to be a wide load of information. So, Maurion, the floor is yours.
So I'm not the person that coined this term. It generally breaks down to the desire to pair or select a partner who is the highest caliber partner that you can obtain. Okay, that's what hypergamy is. It's not really a gender specific term. It's more of a partner criteria, and you find it more often than not exhibited in women. Basically, it is the reproductive strategy that's kind of running in the background, subconsciously for the most part to most women, and it starts pretty early. It's not just something that you begin to make your decisions based on when you're actively seeking a partner. It's actually something that a woman will do to kind of sum up her prospects to be sure that he is the highest caliber partner. So I guess the most layman way to put it is it's a woman's desire to marry well or to marry up. It's that simple. A man's kind of latent reproductive strategy is polygamy. Okay, so the difference is that hyper and then poly is highest and then poly is many. It's that simple. So biologically, if you look at our anatomy, this strategy for each gender comes from your biological reality and your limitations and your incentives and your time frames. That's what's informing these strategies. Okay, so if I can, in theory, start a family for decades of my life, let's say from the time I'm in my teens, I can impregnate a woman all the way until, depending on how healthy I am, all the way into like my 70s or 80s. Why am I designed that way? Why am I capable of starting a family, getting a woman pregnant for that many years of my lifespan? And how is that going to inform, my choices? It's like an awareness that's kind of latent, okay? And that's why even if a guy has a partner who he's happy with, he's still aware of, other women around him. It doesn't mean he'll act on it, but he's aware of these other women. And then hypergamy is a woman basically knowing that she wants the best that she can get and there's language that goes with that. So maybe I'm not kind of getting into this in the most linear way. I didn't make any notes, but I hope you're following me. Have I
Yeah, you
have I
good, bro. Go
lost
ahead.
anybody so far?
No, you good, bro. Go ahead. You got it.
Okay. So you know, it's not a bad thing to understand what hypergamy is. I just think that it's something that it's kind of interesting to me that I've never really heard about it until the past couple of years, and never really seemed to have any way to kind of reconcile um, the behavior of women. And personally, this has been one of the most consistent things that seems to apply um, across the board. And so I believe that all women have this. So it's like a spectrum. And some women are more hypergamous than others. Um, it's almost like a man who's maybe, some men are more naturally inclined to be happy in monogamous, long-term, committed relationships than others. And that's almost, that's like evidence of the fact that, well, you kind of have a, maybe a natural urge to maybe want to have multiple partners as a guy, but just because you might have that awareness of what you might think are like potential options, it doesn't mean you exercise them. And just because you might have like an urge, it doesn't mean that you act on them. But you know, we're both on a spectrum, biologically speaking. It's how our species populated. Okay. You know,
Got you. So
it's a natural thing. It's nothing wrong with it, but it is important to understand it. And until recently, I've never heard anybody say anything about really what a woman's reproductive strategy is. And now that I kind of understand that, some of the language that I hear around conversations with women, it makes more sense. You know, I hear more. I never hear a man talk about what he won't settle for. I never hear a man talk about what he deserves. I hear that with women. I hear women say, I shouldn't have to settle. I deserve, you know, I can do bad all by myself. This is all language that really kind of ties back to the fact that if she can't obtain the highest caliber, highest quality partner, in her mind that she believes, is the best fit for her, then she's not going to be satisfied. And that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Okay, so with that being said, bro, a great introduction and kind of defining what it is. How does that relate to like value systems between like masculinity and femininity? So how does hypergamy and polygamy, as you have kind of stated it, how does that, again, how does that those value systems work with regards to the genders and well, I'll say well, not even genders, just masculinity and femininity.
Yeah, so hypergamy is interesting because it also helps me understand what it is that I'm kind of being judged against. And it's not like I'm upset with it. I just understand. And if you're a guy that was raised fairly well to be chivalrous and to be thoughtful and productive, then you could say kind of traditional. Then it's not like a new idea that you're expected to be a provider, to be a protector. And that's essentially what hypergamy is trying to identify. And the sophistication or the exposure of the woman who is trying to identify these things, that determines what traits she looks at to indicate your capability to provide and protect. And so if you're not very sophisticated, if you're not very worldly exposed and your horizons aren't very broad, then the indications that you look for in a man might be very base. So it might be stacks of cash. It might be shiny jewelry, diamonds, and things like that. It might be literal weapons, violence, or a history of violence, knowing that you're with a tough guy, stuff like that. So it's like I'm with a protector, I'm with a provider type of guy. But I think as women become more sophisticated, depending on what their exposure level is, they understand that, oh, well, someone who can confront problems diplomatically, who can help me make solid decisions and not get taken advantage of. And a business transaction, that's also a form of protection. Or, somebody who has a skill set that maybe is not part of the status quo set of accomplishments that a guy is expected to have. So let's say you're not a lawyer, you're not a doctor, you're not an academically accomplished person, but let's say you've got a successful commercial heating and air conditioning business or something like that. Like that would be kind of a more that guy can also provide, and that guy is maybe not going to be lumped in with some of the white collar success that are the stereotypes that we might push people towards and kind of generally acknowledge. And so, but it's all part of kind of checking these first two boxes, which are kind of the entry point of masculinity's value. Like how can it get summed up? How do we know who we're dealing with? Can he protect? Can he provide?
One thing that did stick out is like you talked about, like the tough guy thing, like those protection cues that, like, the thug, the tough guy. A lot of women are, especially young women, they like the thugs and tough. I'm not gonna point no fingers or point no elbows or nothing, but some people that like the thugs and the tough guys because they have like certain protection cues or whatnot, like you kind of mentioned. But yeah, to your other point, I do agree with you. We talked about this a little bit last night too. So can you talk about like your I think you talked about use the term utility. So talk about a little bit about how utility equates to masculinity and the value systems of masculinity. And we'll get to femininity next, because that's what I'm really interested in hearing the ladies ladies' perspective on that.
Yeah.
So
all right,
go
Can't wait.
As simple as I can put it, girls are born with their value. Women are born with their value. It's intrinsic, and boys are not, by and large. Okay, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way. Obviously, I was a little boy at one point, right? So our value as masculine figures comes from achievement and accomplishment, and what it is that we can show as useful to the group around us, to the people around us. And that's a different way of kind of valuing, the individual. Now, I want to be clear, like a lot of this stuff really is more so like within a romantic context, like between masculinity and femininity's involvement with each other. But in general, I would say men have to achieve their manhood, and they have to sustain their manhood, and they have to prove their manhood constantly. I'm not mad at that. That's actually fine. But you're going to wait a little longer as a guy to achieve that than a girl is going to wait to accomplish, in air quotations, like to achieve her status of womanhood. It's a little bit different. I feel, by kind of thinking about some of the things that I've been reading, some of the things that I've watched, long format video essays and podcasts and things like that, and then kind of turning it over in my head to try to make sense of things. I want to say this. Part of the reason why I did become so interested in this is because I was curious, why is there an accepted normal amount of dysfunction between men and women? And I don't think it's right. It's not that it's not normal. Obviously, it's normal, but I don't think that it's right. And I was kind of looking for an understanding as to why that is.
So can you explain a little bit further?
It doesn't mean we have to be thinking the exact same way, but it just seems like we're constantly not speaking to each other in ways in which we really hear one another. And understanding more about hypergamy is really kind of me wanting to understand more about women, because I'm heterosexual.
And their expectations, I guess.
I'm interested in women, and I want to have positive, collaborative experiences with women. Okay, I don't want to be at odds with them, and I feel like if I could better understand what's kind of going on behind what they will tell me when I ask them a question, I felt like if I could better understand that, then maybe I could, have better relationships, better communication. Um, and that just leads to more positive interactions, which can lead to better relationships and more trust. And, you're just walking away from interactions, not feeling confused and not feeling as though you confused somebody else or offended her. So that was the reason why I started to really get interested in this. The term was something that I heard watching some long format video essays on YouTube by people who've written books. One guy is Rollo Tomasi. I obviously am aware of Kevin Samuels. I've watched a lot of his material, and the term has come up. And so I became interested in the term, and it began to kind of make sense to me, kind of what's going on with why we seem to be, at worst at odds with each other, but the norm, which is kind of the best case scenario because it's the most likely, is that there just seems to be some low level of baseline dysfunction between us. And I don't think that's good.
Absolutely. So let's pause right there, bro. Any thoughts, Lewis? Actually, I was about to ask Jamal. Lewis, what are your thoughts, fellas?
And that's interesting. I wonder if there's if it varies among different cultures, how they do certain things, because I know we look at how women think, well, supposedly think that marrying up, whether for social, economical, financial, if that's what they've been doing since early ages. You look at some of these other countries where some of the young women are almost forced or set up into marrying in high associate, a family that's rich, or for whatever reason, but they start young. It's arranged. How different do those cultures and women play into them thinking of protection and being with a man by will? Because I know sometimes it's not by will, it's by family wanting their younger daughters to marry into another family, whether it's for power or money, whatever it is. But we know it goes on because that it happens. It's been happening for centuries. What makes that different? Let's say within our culture.
It's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting what you just said, bro. Because it's when I'm hearing you say, it's like you have the, I guess, an individualistic perspective or approach to hypergamy versus a collective. It's the same concept, to your point. Like, it could be that the culture itself, honors hypergamous elements, what I'm saying, as opposed to just the individual. So that's pretty interesting that you mentioned it. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, and that's why I was just kind of, I don't know if you studied that a little bit, if you came across that in your studies, not just among us, but just, women in different cultures. How they, what's their reaction? What's their thought process? Has that changed? Did it come from there? Did it come from there? So
I'll say this. I don't think this is so much of a nurture scenario. I think this is more of a result of the reality of your biological limitations. That's what it is. I mean, it makes sense. Like, I empathize. I completely get it. And if I was a woman, I would be hypergamous as hell. Like, I completely understand.
No, I'm big too.
So here's the thing, right? If I only have, let's just say, I don't know. I mean, obviously you can become pregnant before you're 18 years old, but who would really want that? So let's just say you start counting at the age of 18, okay, and until pregnancy becomes high risk for a woman to carry to term, okay, then we're talking about mid to late 30s, okay, so we're talking about 17 years, 17 to 22 years maybe, okay, before we have to start exploring in vitro and some other forms of therapy in order to get pregnant, okay, well, the human gestation period is 9 months, right? So even if it was, the objective to have as many babies as a woman is capable of having, well, she's going to be pregnant for 9 months. So even if she had 4 children, right, then what's that? 36 months. So 4 years out of her life is pregnant just to have 4 children. Okay. And out of the 17 to 22 that she can become pregnant, that's a huge reproductive investment to have a child. And it's a lot larger for her than it is for the guy. Okay. So, how many women can a man make pregnant in a week compared to how many children can a woman have if she really put her mind to it over the course of that window in her life that she's capable of having children without assistance, like surrogacy and other things, right? And so that is just the fact. And that fact is what drives, I think, a woman to understand that, like, I can't blow this. I have to make a good choice here. I become extremely vulnerable while I'm pregnant. More vulnerable back in the day than today, but I become very physically vulnerable. I'm not able to, in today's terms, you may find yourself sick and not being able to continue to go to work day to day a lot earlier in your pregnancy than compared to some other women who work damn near right up to the point that they're in labor. So it's a huge variable. And so I understand that a protector and a provider, it's like, I need stability. I need consistency. I need protection. And, I'm going to be vulnerable, and I need somebody who I can count on to be there for me and my child. I completely get it. Like I said, I empathize. I understand.
So during gestation and even after, child rearing too. So it's a long, like I said, it's a long investment.
For sure. So. Like, I'm not mad at hypergamy. I understand it. Thank God I understand it now, because before I understood it or even knew that it existed, it was just kind of a weird thing where it's just like, why is it that, like, we never talk to little boys about what they deserve, but we tell little girls right away, don't settle. Like, the message to me when I was growing up was, I go pick up my prom date and it's like, come on in, young man, have a seat. She'll be downstairs in just a minute. Let me talk to you for a second. If you put your hands on her, I will kill you. Like,
basically.
What? Okay. And it's
got these hands.
It's interesting. Like, this is something that's very unique to a guy's experience pretty early on. And so I'm going to kind of jump around just because now the ideas are beginning to flow. But I began to kind of like connect dots to things that I had been observing over the course of my life. I'm 35 years old. And I just was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. So, the idea that, like, well, are you good enough for my daughter? But we never tell a young boy, like, well, make sure she's good enough for you. Like, it's something about hypergamy that's being instilled before she even is really aware of the fact that she's kind of being taught how to select a mate effectively.
But do you think, because I'll be honest, my mom, when I was growing up, I have 10 brothers and sisters. So, and I have 3 sisters and 6 brothers. And my mom was very particular when I brought either a young woman to the house, because she felt like, listen, this girl better be right for my son. I got that from my mom. So we couldn't just bring any woman to the house. She was like, whoever you bring, make sure you bring one. So I gotta be trying to remember 3 or 4 different girls. I want to make sure this one, I need to talk to her.
Check that off the list.
That's my mom was like that.
It's just that it's not quite the same.
Not today, of course. There's definitely
not as universal. It's not as universal.
It's not quite the same.
Real quick before you continue, Maurion, Jamal, what do you got any thoughts, bro? So I know you jumped off and then
isn't it considered like instinctual through a woman to be
hypergamous?
Yes, because
yes, of course.
because regardless, they have to find that, like you said, that alpha male. They go for the alpha male, the masculinity and stuff like that. They got to feel protected, but that comes instinctually. So
Of course.
it's not really. I mean, is it not really taught from a young age? It comes natural.
It does, but it's reinforced. And
It's
before
reinforced socially. Yeah.
before I had heard this term, I didn't know what I couldn't really explain certain things. Like, okay, like you want to really talk about some interesting displays of hypergamy, start looking at popular music. And this is something that really makes my friends laugh, because I'll say it's real interesting. You know, we know we can finish these lyrics. If you ain't got no money, take your broke ass home. We're not talking to women when we say that.
No.
We're talking to men.
Women are saying that.
Okay? Women are saying that to men. Like, the message is 8-figure nigga, that's my type. We're not talking, guys are not saying that's the kind of woman they're looking for. Women are saying that's, and I know these are broad brushstrokes, but I'm just saying there's this constant thing that's always been there where it's like, sweetheart, you shouldn't settle for less. You know, you deserve the world. Women literally say this to each other. Like, you deserve the world, and you're beautiful inside and out, and you know, God has somebody waiting for you, and blah blah blah. And it's just like,
no scrubs. You forgot that one.
Oh, no scrubs.
No
Pay
scrubs.
my bills.
Yeah.
Bills. All of this stuff. Like pretty much every
F bitches get money. Yeah.
Okay. Pretty much most anthems and popular songs that women would sing at the top of their lungs are hypergamous. Okay? If you love me, show it, prove it, you know, say it, do it, like brownstone. Like this shit is deep. Okay, like before people even knew what this term was, women know. And the interesting thing is, she doesn't have to have a whole lot going on for herself in order before she'll demand these things of men.
Right.
Now.
No, just period. Okay, because here's the thing. If you look at fairy tales, like, no offense, but what the hell did Cinderella have to offer that prince?
Well, you know, if you look at the story, it wasn't her fault.
I'm not saying it's her fault, but what I'm saying is, you see, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, okay, Fiona and Shrek, like, it's just interesting. Maybe not the Shrek example.
Well,
I was going to say that's not a really
So that was right. I'm like, wait a minute, right?
I mean,
but
it kind of tracks. It tracks a little bit. It tracks a little bit. But yeah, go ahead.
But the idea is that she wants a champion. She wants the best that she can get.
Because he had to go through trials and stuff. Yeah, you're right. I get you.
That's the point. It's like, she's the one in the castle. He has to come up the mountain, slay a damn dragon, like overcome all these obstacles to prove his worth to her. That is like a hypergamy archetype of like arc of a story right there.
It's funny we don't have Clay here now because he was been like about the man winning the prize.
But
look, the prize.
Isn't that necessary though? But isn't it necessary?
It's perfectly necessary. Yes, it is necessary, because this goes back to what Trey was asking me to kind of expand on a few minutes ago. And now, like, the McAllen's kicking in, you know what I'm saying? And I'm getting comfortable. So
go ahead, do your thing, bro.
So, okay. So look, it's fine, but it's something that kind of needs to be said. Okay, fine. You're hypergamous. You want the best you can get. Okay. Which means that there's a lot of guys that you're going to ignore. There's a lot of guys who aren't going to make the cut. And it's an interesting existence for those guys who don't make the cut in the eyes of most women. And let me be specific. Here's what hypergamy basically is instinctually telling a woman to do. She acknowledges men from her eye level, okay? She acknowledges men. This is her minimum standard, her level. Okay? You have to be doing at least as well as I'm doing. This is hypergamy right here in illustration. I see you from here and I see you from here. Okay? Anybody below here, you're invisible. You are literally just a warm body, just somebody else taking my order. When I stop by a restaurant, you're just another waiter. You're just another person working at the wherever. Okay, that's basically what hypergamy is. It creates an interesting dynamic between masculine and feminine figures. Okay, because the feminine does not need to really. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I mean, I just said a lot.
Yeah,
Maybe.
no, let's go. Go ahead. No, go ahead, bro. Go ahead. Yeah, go.
I
Yeah, go
have
ahead.
a question.
Justin.
I was thinking about what you said about the eye level thing, and I think that's very true because I know it's true for me. I can't even lie. And I'm not talking about just height. I'm just talking about like you should at least be doing
Status.
status, whatever it is, goals, whatever it comes down to. But I feel like women feel that way because of our struggle of having to get where we are. If I can struggle and make it to where I am, shouldn't you at least be there? Because you've had all the advantages in history to get there already.
Well, yes and no, right? Okay, so like, no, not all men have had the advantages. Like, power has been consolidated.
Yes,
okay?
but I'm saying all men have the advantages above women.
It depends.
In a patriarchal society.
In a patriarchal society, as saying like there were, women weren't even entered into a room, whether you were black or Hispanic. Yes, maybe you weren't entered into a specific room, but there were rooms available to you in a certain light where women were not even acknowledged as thinking human beings that can promote and give thought to society or anything like that. So that's what I'm saying. Like
yes and no, but I will say this. Men who have power, power has never been as democratized as it is now. Okay? Because if we start going back in time, then we start going back to monarchy. Okay? And so it's cute to call each other kings. What's up, king? What up, king? Like that's a very contemporary thing to do. Your ass was not a king. Like the real kings were kings, and they had a queen. And they had concubines who they had several children with. Okay, but those children were not official heirs to the throne. Gender-wise, from an equality, equal access to opportunities point of view, yes, I can 100% understand your point. But I will say, back in the day, the power was very, very consolidated, extremely consolidated. And it wasn't people of our complexion that had it. And so let's just say a woman who is a feminist, who is black, looks at me as a man, but doesn't acknowledge the fact that I'm a black man, and then tries to apply, some of her, let's just say, underlying hostility towards men, because there is a such thing as toxic feminism and toxic femininity. And so let's just say that's starting to be directed at me. I'll have to quickly remind her, like that doesn't really apply to me. Like I'm not part of the patriarchy that conquered and like enslaved
and raped their penguins and all that.
Like that's not like I'm Black American. I don't even know really what country I'm connected to on the continent. Trust me, like I am not part of the establishment that you are riling against. So, it's an interesting point.
But I also feel like, Black women are moving very quickly up in this world with the time frame that we've seen it happen in, and maybe I'm looking at it through on that. I'm sure you do, because I was saying it.
Yeah, but why do you think that? Why do you think that?
It doesn't matter why I think it is a fact.
But why is it happening? Is a reason behind it. It's always
there is a reason behind it, but and maybe we can get into that in a different discussion. But for this discussion,
it's part of trying to erase the black man.
It's part
black.
Of
it. Mm-hmm. Erica, what did you say?
Trying to erase the black man. Oh, they're trying to eliminate the black man.
Delete us. That's why.
So if
So
someone
you're
has
saying
a
that Black
board,
women are getting their own money and their own things going and their businesses and stuff to erase the Black man?
No. I think what the system is set up to eliminate the Black man, and a part of that, one of the effects of that is that Black women have certain
Are
advantages.
able to,
You know what I'm
they're
saying?
filling the gap that's being exposed. Okay,
Absolutely,
got
so
you.
Jessica,
Okay,
here's
yes,
the thing, right?
yes.
Let's say you and I are equally qualified, and we are at mid-level management positions with tenure. Okay.
I was just thinking, I think that's why Black women are the most like single group.
Yeah.
Is that a
Well, that
reason?
maybe
no, it's two reasons. It's number one, incarceration rates amongst Black men,
Well,
unemployment.
yes.
Those I think that's relevant too.
Because
But anyway, go ahead.
Black women are coming up, but we can't find anybody on our level because of what's going on with the system. So therefore, we're staying single longer and not getting, we're hypergamous, but we're not getting the people that we
The
are
opportunities,
seeing
same opportunities.
Right. So
they're not out there. They don't exist because there's some type of they're in jail or the system has done something.
Well, it's not just that. Okay, so I'm recently divorced. Okay, and although I make up the statistic of failed marriages, one thing where I am an outlier is that I'm the one that filed for divorce. Okay, over 70% of all divorces are filed for by women, and that percentage is even higher among Black marriages. Black women file for divorce from Black men at rates even higher than 70%. So if all women are divorcing their husbands 70%, Black women are divorcing their husbands even greater than that. Okay?
Why is that?
I think it has a lot to do with a lot of different factors. But one could say that hypergamy probably plays a role in this as well.
LaShonna's doing her hum. She has something to say.
Go ahead, LaShonna.
Yeah, you've been quiet.
I have been, because I've been listening.
Yeah, I've been trying to listen, but that part I was like, hold on, I have a question.
Well, but just because through my research of looking up what hypergamy is, and from my understanding, I get what you're saying, but from my understanding, from where it originated from, it is from a cultural standpoint. It came from Hindu. That's where it originated from my research. So looking it up and trying to figure it out and how it's done, it is done from a social or economic standpoint, but I feel like from my understanding, the purpose was to build a wealthy type of family. So you're having two type of families that are marrying together to build a certain type of wealth, to build a certain type of pedigree of children, or in that sense. And even now, yes, there are certain women who still feel that way or who still move that way, but it's also being noticed that it's dying off. It's not as strong as it was before, but it is dying off. It's like, because even for me, I'm not looking at, at that type of like that. Like, I have family or sisters that do, but and even in that sense, I'm just like, but there's so much more that he can offer you other than just that. There's more than that you can offer him other than just that. So I get what you're saying, but I also do feel like that type of thinking and that hyperganism is dying to me, my personal opinion, that is dying off. It's not as strong as it is.
Well, I will say this, right? We have to manage expectations to the fat end of the bell curve. We cannot manage expectations to the exceptions to any rule. Okay? If you drink and drive, will you 100% get into a car accident and kill yourself? No. But it happens often enough that we have laws in place to deter you, to create the proper incentives that you don't drink and drive. So this is not about some absolute that, this is some like setting your watch to something is guaranteed, and you can just predict some woman's behavior down to the next word is going to come out of her mouth because she's hypergamous. That's not what it is. it's a spectrum. Now, it's important. It's important because what we're really talking about is we are not the same. We are not the same as masculine and feminine figures. And we're obviously not the same as men and women. I say masculine and feminine figures because even in a same sex pairing, there is a more masculine and there is a more feminine. Okay. And this is really about the context within a romantic relationship that creates families. That's where the tension and the chemistry is. Okay. And this is something that helps me better understand what it is that I'm kind of being measured by from women, but this is being reinforced to me as well from men. And that's what Trey was talking about earlier with the utility. Like, I am only as valuable as I am useful as a man. Okay. No man ever stood at a tourist site when he's on vacation, took a picture in front of a sunset, and then his caption said, "I am the view." Like, we don't do that. Like, we understand that, like, we are not valuable just for rolling out of bed. Just, I woke up like this. Like, no, get your ass to work. Like, what can you provide of value to those around you? And that's what helps you as a masculine figure, as a man, achieve visibility through the lens of hypergamy. And that's what helps you achieve respect and solidifies that more opportunities will continue to flow your way from the men around you who have, obtained and achieved, who got a station in life to kind of give you a hand up. That's how we are measured.
So with that being said, a couple of things. Number one, just for those who know, I'm Trey. That's the name I grew up with.
You need to acknowledge that. I know our audience is like, who is Trey?
Trey, yeah.
So Mark,
so yeah, what's interesting, like, real quick thing, like, those who really know me, like there's a period in my life, I guess like a threshold period in my life. Like, people that know me college and after, they know me as Benjamin. People that know me from college and before, they know me as Trey because I'm the third. So Maurion, I've been friends with Maurion since we were adolescents, so he calls me Trey. So that's the first thing, just for the audience who's like, who the hell is Trey? Second thing is that was kind of a good segue into something else that we kind of touched on a little bit, but we talked about the value system for men being utility. We talked about a man's usefulness being the measure of his value. So let's talk about women. So in terms of hypergamy and polygamy and any other kind of conceptions of value system and expectation systems in an axiomatic sort of perspective, how are women valued? And before we go, before we go to
put your seatbelt on, okay? Restrain yourself.
Before we go to you, actually, Maurion, let's talk Lewis, and Jamal. Y'all have any thoughts on what you said before we move on to that?
I have a question. So when it comes to dating for you, Maurion, like how do you pick the person that you're with when it comes to hyperganism? Like how do you pick her, or do you allow her to pick you?
That's a great question. So I'll tell you what's happened to me. I know what it feels like to date and not have any money, really. I know what it feels like to date and be broke. Okay. But I don't think women know what it feels like to date without their youth and beauty. Okay. So it's an interesting.
Hold up, one more time.
You're like, rewind the tape. Hold on.
Here we go.
What I'm saying is, women are young. They all get to enjoy that. Okay. And they all get to, kind of reach, let's just say,
they find this period,
a form of like their peak sexual agency. Let's just put it that way, to put it delicately. Right. And now how long you kind of occupy that space is kind of subjective, whatever. Right. But it happens to you by default. You get that. I'm in real estate, so I refer to this as a seller's market. Okay. You get to enter a period in your life where you enter a seller's market where you can name your price, and the demand is so high that, you know, a lot of people claim to be willing to pay it and will,
highest bidder.
Correct. Okay. Well, that's what girls get to enjoy, and they don't have to achieve this. They don't earn this. It just happens. And we know when it happens. Like I was telling a few people I know, like, it's interesting. You might have like a younger sister or a niece or a cousin, and you hadn't seen her in a long time, maybe saw her when she was a little child, and then somebody says, oh, she's on the homecoming court. And then you might see a picture of her, and it's like, that's a woman. That ain't the little girl I remember. Well, that just happens to her. Like she enters this period of time in her life where she can begin to, like, dictate, the terms of what it is that you have to do and who you have to be to get her phone number, take her out on a date, blah, blah, blah. And that's interesting. And so I refer to that as like a seller's market. But the thing about a seller's market is they don't last forever. Okay. And
I said, because sometimes with women, some of us have already peaked already, which we, like, being in high school, we've seen girls who are like, pretty gorgeous and everything, and they peaked already, and then you see them years later, and it's like, well, dang, what happened. So I do understand,
Right.
that particular,
And
is this quote unquote the wall that they
it's
describe,
something
the wall?
Right.
Yeah, but like men cannot begin to understand this. We cannot relate in any way whatsoever. When you tell somebody like, hey, there's some girls coming to the party. Oh, word? Yeah, man. Like when you're younger, and they might say like 18, 19, 20, 22-year-old. Oh shit, okay. Yeah. Tell them to come on through. Nobody gets excited when it's like, oh, it's some guys coming over. Oh yeah, how old? 18, 19. Man, these broke little boys. Like, we don't want to hang out with them. Like, it doesn't work.
Oh, Jessica's cougar radar just went off.
I'm like, I'm realizing
her spidey sense.
He's saying
her cougar
truth.
spidey
Like,
sense went off.
that is true, because I'm like,
none
of us like attracted to no 18, 19-year-old,
Okay.
because one of the reasons is he can't do nothing for me.
Bingo. That's hypergamy talking.
He really
right
can't.
there.
I mean, the only thing he can do is probably something physical, but like.
I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to go back to my point.
Okay.
When women walk into a room in a social setting, I have never heard any woman say, ooh, there's a whole lot of dick in here. I don't care about that.
We have.
One at a time.
Hold on. Let me tell you what you are more likely to hear. Oh, it's some ballers in here. Oh, it's some niggas in here who got a bag.
I see that point.
Okay, so you see,
wording.
like,
it's the wording, but it also depends on which group of women. It depends, because
where are we?
And where are they? Because you have a certain type of group of women to where it's like, yeah, you may say you have that group of friends like, oh yeah, there's some ballers in here tonight, girl. We about to get it. And then you do have some like, dang, there's a lot of dick in here tonight. You and like in that portion, you may not hear it, but it's said. Like,
I
when
understand
it comes to
that, but what I'm saying is this, right?
He's saying the majority of the time,
women
it's more likely.
Women are not walking around excited by the fact that, like, it's a whole bunch of penis floating around. No, it's like, who is it attached to? Who are these men? Okay, now I want to know more about that part of him. But it's like, tell me more about this person, then we get to that. Okay, so like, where the ballers at? Like where are the guys who are worth something? Where are the guys who have achieved something? Where are the guys who have a reputation that precedes them? That's who I want to bump into at this function. Okay, because guess who else has a dick in his pants? The valet who parked your car, and you don't give a damn about his. Okay, you trying to get into the function to go see the keynote speaker who you
There was
found
some
out
dick out
was
there.
exactly. It's like you're trying to go into the function to talk to to see if the keynote speaker is single and find out who else is on that panel. You know what I'm saying? Like that's who you trying to network with, because who else got a dick in his pants? The catering staff, and you don't give a damn about his.
Now
So
you
it's
saying that
status
this
takes
is for
primacy.
all
So status
people?
takes primacy.
Like
He's
they're
gonna say
not
broad
fine.
brushstrokes on this.
These are broad brushstrokes. Like I'm just
Oh, okay,
using
because
this
I'm
as an
like,
example.
I don't care how much money you make if you ain't, if you're not tingly or,
Of course, but
Okay,
what I'm saying
I'm
is,
just making sure because
what I'm saying is that your entry point is different. Your entry
He
point
said
starts with
status
qualitative.
takes primacy. Yeah,
that's where we start. Okay, we don't
right.
just start with, well, do you have the anatomy? The guy bagging your groceries at Publix could probably blow your
Knock
back
that
out,
thing down.
but you're
Yeah.
not curious. You're not willing to give him a chance to do it.
Oh, what?
Don't tell them lie. Don't come here lying now.
The Walmart stock.
Okay. So again, back to my question. Like,
yeah, I'm gonna have to say no on that one. I'm sorry.
Like, yeah. So that, back to my question. So do you pick her, or do you?
Okay, yeah. That is the point I was really on. Okay. So I'm sorry.
It's all good, man. We get sidetracked.
Okay, so here's what's interesting. The past 24 months, Corona was really good to me. I can't explain where all this demand comes from. I'm a commercial real estate broker. And you know what? I can't explain it. A lot of my clients are in industries that unintentionally flourished as a result of people working from home. I have a lot of clients who are in the beauty industry. And so with women working from home, the ones who still did, have the ability to earn a good living and not have to go to the office anymore, they're getting their nails done more often. I helped 3 lash technicians get studios. I helped 1 nail technician, and I helped 1 hairstylist. And I did all this within like 4 months in 2020 in the summer. Like their businesses boomed. Some of these girls were working in apartments, just kind of trapping from the crib. And some of these girls had a salon suite, but all of them saw the demand for their services rise during the pandemic, and that affects my income. So one of my clients is B. Simone. So B. Simone got referred to me because people were consuming content at a much greater rate. So her popularity grew even more so when people were sitting at home. And ever since like May of 2020, I've seen like a spike in my income, and it's been like tremendous. It's been like pretty much sustained. So I'm now like in a place where some of the hypergamous messages, well, that shit don't apply to me no more. When we say, if you ain't got no money, take your broke ass home, you ain't talking to me. When you say like,
I'm balling out and I got money in the bank. You know,
when like you say like, can you pay my bills?
Yes.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Now what? See,
I can.
that's the interesting thing. It's like,
and the driver of the car.
Correct. And so what I've noticed is like there's been kind of a change in posture. I've gotten used to a certain posture since I was a teenager having girlfriends. And the posture initially for the majority of my life up to this point has been, are you good enough for my daughter? Are you good enough for her? Because
now,
I can do bad all by myself, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, through hard work and persistence and years of discipline and some opportunities, because I was prepared to take advantage of these opportunities, I was there with the skill set when the circumstances allowed me to flourish. Now I'm in a position where I don't know if this am I good enough for you anymore. I think I've reached a different kind of place now, a place that a lot of men don't get to reach. Okay? A lot of men can't relate to this. And it's interesting. This is part of what made me start contemplating, why is it that I'm being responded to differently? I've always been articulate. I've always been, let's say, a good person. I've always been chivalrous, but yet I'm being responded to differently. I'm obviously exhibiting something's affecting the feedback that I'm beginning to get back, and things feel a little easier.
Do you think it's really society as a whole that has put an emphasis on materialistic things. Because I feel like
go ahead.
A lot of us in this generation, we value family, but we don't really value family. I feel like it's more so for picture purposes. Oh, I have a husband, kid. I think it's like back in the day, fathers went out and worked, they sacrificed for their family. They were more close knit. Whatever little they had, they were happy about. And they, nothing could break that bond. But I feel like now it's like, well, let me get married to attain, to make more, to, what I'm saying? It's like, let me climb up this ladder just because I want to seem like I have it all together based on a societal view of get more, get more, get more, get more. And I feel like a lot of our values are being lost.
No, we've always been that way, Jolon. I mean,
it's my opinion. So
no, I'm just saying, in your opinion, I understand where you're coming from, but I'm saying, like, I think that that whole mindset has always been. It's just, it was
out
less
in the open.
Exactly. I think women have been trying to marry up and get a good husband and have kids and all that stuff forever. I mean,
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's the way it's being done now.
Sure.
Like that's the total focus of the 8 million nigga, whatever the quote is. That's the that's like the total focus. Like you're not even seeing nothing else around you because that's what you're beelining for.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
You're saying there's an overemphasis on materialism.
Correct.
Yes, it's been exacerbated.
Nothing wrong with wanting a nice house and a white picket fence and a safe neighborhood, but you have to have a house on the hills. Like, what is that going to do for you? And you breaking your neck, doing all kinds of crazy stuff to get it.
All right.
I think that's always been.
So that's because society is pushing it right now.
But that was my point from the beginning.
It's a societal. It's not even. It's not even society specific.
Even more so.
It's ladies who have a platform to say these things out loud, and it travels farther. And
it's always been, but
but I'll tell you something that I've observed that kind of makes me like shake my head is, as long as a woman is getting ahead, I don't find that a lot of women will stand up and say, yes, but by what means, sweetheart? The means matter. It's like we can't justify how you achieve this just because of what the result was. So like at what price? And
right.
It's like if you finesse a man, in order to achieve, it's like, well, it's kind of messed up, but I'm happy.
I still got it. Yeah.
Get your bag.
By any means necessary.
Hold on. But it's not just she's happy. Women are actually like, well, go on, girl.
Supporting her.
They've been doing us dirty for years. Niggas ain't shit anyway. Break that nigga, finesse him, get that bag, and it's like that's what makes me shake my head, because only recently have I began to get into a different headspace where I'm having conversations with my parents, explaining to them what my experience is, where it's visible. I'm not hiding the fact that I do well, like where I live, what I drive. I didn't work this hard to like camouflage it. And so, I'm now beginning to understand like, oh, Mom, you didn't tell me about whores. You didn't tell me about gold diggers. You didn't tell me about these kind of women. Like, you just taught me to be chivalrous. You just taught me to just pedestalize any person who has a vagina because they're all ladies. No, they're not. And like, I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it's only within the past couple of years that it's really kind of been in my face. Like, damn, like we don't talk to boys. We don't tell boys like to protect themselves from girls.
I'm a little different. I'm a mother of a boy, and for
You're
me,
the exception though.
I get that, but at the same time, even with my mom did that with my brother.
Which is why you're an exception, because your mom was an exception as well.
but I don't think it's like that anymore. I think from our generation, yes, but as women who have, you know, boys now, but because that was not taught, I feel like it is being taught, because there are certain things that are excuse me, I'm sorry, that are being broken, you know, because like I talk to my son about those things all the time. Like, you know, these are the type of women that you need to watch out for. You know, like I tell him those things.
I hear you, and I understand that.
He also asks those questions. So so because we have an open dialogue about it. So when he asks me those questions, I'm like, okay, sure, I'll definitely talk to you about it. But not only that, I'll shift it over to his father. Hey, our son is having questions about this, that, and the third. When you're with him, make sure you talk to him about that. I spoke to him from my experience as a woman, and I'm
giving women don't do this.
From that feminine energy, and I'll tell him, and then, like I said, I'll talk to his dad, and I'm like, look, this is what he's going through. This is what he needs to be taught. This is what I said, and I did it from my perspective. He needs to hear it from a male perspective. So make sure you do talk to him about those things.
Okay. So, I'm going to tell you, the only boys who get this talk, and I'm using broad brushstrokes, the only boys who get the kind of talk that I'm talking about are boys who show promise in athletics real young. Those boys are warned. Those boys who seem like they're going to be fast-tracked to get drafted, we warn those boys. But the boys who say, I want to be an architect, or I want to like study engineering, or do something that's not very obviously a high income profession, but when these boys become grown men, they make good freaking money, and yet society doesn't really acknowledge that's the path they're on. These men are vulnerable to women who are weaponizing their femininity, okay? And I'm not saying that, like, I was just out here a deer in headlights, but I'm telling you, like, I was not sat down. I was not groomed to be aware. I was not taught to, like, think of girls this way. I just wasn't. And a lot of boys are not. Most boys are not. And unless you're like an entertainer or you show promise in athletics really young, most parents don't sit their boys down the way you sit almost all girls down. All girls get sat down and told, protect yourself. Men are perverts. They, can.
They want one thing.
Okay, we tell girls this, like you have value that you have to be mindful of. I don't want you in cars late at night with men you don't know. I don't want you in compromising situations around when you go off to college. Always check in with your homegirl. Like, I don't want y'all going anywhere without each other. Like, women literally hold each other's hands walking through nightclubs. Like it's different. That does not happen for boys. And and when men get finessed, okay, we just laugh. And it's just like, damn, nigga, you ain't see that coming, man. I could have told you like that's what kind of time she was on. It's like, no, I didn't see it coming. Like, it's a huge paradigm shift to even like really understand that. Like, this is the game that we give girls. We tell girls pretty early on, like, men are dirty. You got to protect yourself from them. Don't ever let a man tell you that he's better than you or put you down to pull himself up. You're just as good as they are. And matter of fact, you're better. Like, we don't
sugar and spice and everything nice.
We don't sit boys down and tell them like there's a such thing as like toxic femininity, and we don't.
Women are narcissists too.
This is my point. Like we all know,
and much better at it too. Much more effective at it.
Know, like the cliche, everybody knows niggas ain't shit. Everybody knows this. This is like status quo baseline understanding about the world around us. But nobody knows status quo baseline mainstream understanding. Women ain't shit. Like, and I know that even sounds weird to even say out loud, but it's like it goes both ways.
Like, yeah, like I'm that's not like, yeah, I know women ain't shit too.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know who told you otherwise, but
right.
they
Like,
you.
I know women ain't shit. Like, I know there are certain men who are shit, but and you know what? And I would take that. I would be that different anomaly because I talk to my son about those things. Like, I let him know, I speak into him and I let him know, like, you're just as good as she is. Make sure that, whoever you decide that you want to be with, that she is there for you. You guys are in this relationship together and you guys are, interdependent with one another. And it's just not, that. So I talk to my daughter and my son. Like, I have the best.
But I will say, your son has a much different path ahead of him. Okay, his peak, it ain't biological. Okay, he won't come into the peak of his agency until, see, if a woman's womanhood is established based on whether or not she can become a mother, a man's manhood is not established based on whether or not he can become a man. It's, can you provide for this family? Now you're a man. Not can you get her pregnant.
To become a father, you mean?
Okay, exactly. So it's like the tests are different for us, and it's going to be a little later in life before your son can, kind of be at the peak of his agency and be able to kind of shift these tables like I'm experiencing here now. It's completely mind-boggling, actually.
Yeah, so it's definitely a different roadmap. So to kind of shift, and I think again, kind of touched on it a little bit, but so value systems for men is utility, more pragmatic, kind of understanding. So what about women? I know we talked about that, or we touched on it, but so what is your understanding in that particular respect with regards to everything you're talking about?
I mean, I'm going to be very specific. I'm going to talk about what, within a romantic context, what the entry point qualities are for a woman to need to exhibit to show me that there's some long-term relationship potential here. Okay. I feel as though we are equal, but we're not equal the same way. Okay. 2 + 2 is 4, and 3 + 1 is also 4. And they're both equal numbers, but they're not, you don't arrive at that place the same way. And so this is kind of what I understand. And I understand now that I feel very good about the fact that I can protect and provide. I feel something that's kind of in my mind now about, well, what's the point of being good enough at something to have abundance just to have it all to yourself? I am now beginning to kind of come into kind of like a loose kind of wanting of a family. And that's not a biological thing. It's because I know I can handle the responsibility. That's not because I just need to go get someone pregnant. It's because it's like, damn, I worked hard, I achieved, I've got this house, but she's going to help make it a home. And she can help me do what I can't do by myself, which is establish a legacy. And that's what I'm interested in. Like, I didn't achieve all this just to be put into the ground and we're just talking about how great Maurion was. It's like, I'd like to pass this down. Okay, so I'm interested in legacy. I'm interested in long-term companionship.
So how do we change the narrative?
Erica, love that word, legacy. That's one of her favorite words.
How do we change
women's value is, though?
How do we change the narrative?
Oh, okay. I got off track.
How do we change the narrative, seeing that you helped yourself bring your value up to the point where you felt, I can do all these things. I'm ready because I can do all these things, and I'm there. My mind is right, and I'm ready to be a father. I'm ready to have a family, right? How do we change the narrative in our young men who are not getting that? That's living like right now in this age, that's dealing with the plethora of women that are exceeding, who are still getting that same information. Men ain't this, men ain't that. Still looking at I need to date and find me a man higher than my my social status. But what do we do with our young men? How do we catch them to be able to still have that value, to know that they can still be a father, they can still be a man to a good woman, without thinking all women are like that?
I literally had this conversation with some cousins about a year ago at like a Christmas dinner, and I told them like they wanted to talk to me about girl problems, and I said, guys, listen, you don't have time for girls right now. Okay? Get to work. You are not dangerous at anything. Okay? You need to understand that you've got time that they don't have. Okay? There's a reason why I can start a family for decades. It's to give me a chance to get my shit together, to become the best version that I can be, to be prepared to handle the responsibility and enjoy the opportunity to be in a fulfilling long-term relationship with a woman, to have a family and help create legacy. Okay? I'm not operating against a biological clock. So I have no excuse. And if that means I got to burn up all of my 20s single, getting my 10,000 hours in, get your ass to work, young man. And if you played around in your 20s and you haven't quite figured out what it is that you need to apply yourself towards, you still got your 30s. Okay? And if you're just beginning to kind of get good at something and it hasn't really come all the way through, and if you can be responsible with your seed and not be spreading it irresponsibly all over the place, then you might be in your early 40s. So be it. But it's like, that's
get your bag,
why,
bro.
That's why you're designed the way you're designed, and she's designed the way she's designed. Like, and this is also part of the reason why I find that this whole eye level thing, that the hypergamy kind of view, women don't mind if you're older. Okay? Like, it's not that they just love gray hair in your beard, but excellence takes time. Greatness takes time. Okay? You have to be disciplined, and anything that's going to produce results is going to require a lot of practice. And so that's why we're not excited when I was making the example earlier about a bunch of young boys coming to a party. It's like, what do they have to offer? What do you even know? You don't even have wisdom, like much less any results. You have no abundance to share with me. You can't teach me anything yet. Okay? And so that's why, it's a more natural occurring pairing to see younger women. Younger could be a 33-year-old with a 54-year-old man. That's fine. It could be a 45-year-old woman with a 62-year-old man. Or it could be a 23-year-old woman with a 35-year-old man. Like, we have time. And what we should be doing is investing in ourselves, cultivating our talents, becoming contributing members of our community. Okay? Because the community falls on us, in my opinion, as men. And it falls on women as well, but I would say the household more so falls on women. But the community at large, that falls on men. If you don't want these water boys out here on the corner harassing you when you're trying to just get through traffic, that's not for a woman to go out there and talk to these, young boys.
I respect their hustle. I respect their hustle.
These little terrorists get on my goddamn nerves, and like they need
until they get hit.
It's better than running your house, bro,
and kicking indoors.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but I'm telling you, they go about it all wrong.
It's a better way to do it.
Some of them do. Yeah. I've seen a lot of them that are good, but I get your point, though. Go ahead. Go ahead.
But what I'm saying is, you see, we need, like, it's going to sound kind of strange, but then also obvious. We need men to win. We need men to do well. We need men to succeed. And like, we need men to be visible, succeeding. Like, boys need to see this. And like, girls need to see this too. But like, trust me, There's a reason why like Batman and Superman and sports figures are like the heroes to little boys, because they're looking for somebody to model themselves after. Like they're interested in who an alpha is. They want to be an alpha. So it's like, who are these people?
Absolutely.
And absent like a diverse spectrum of alphas, they're going to get the same basic options. I'm going to play sports. I'm going to go into entertainment. I'm going to go into street life and get fast money. Okay, scamming and selling drugs and robbing people, because these are the men who seem to be able to exhibit traits of protector and provider cues that women respond to. That's what the boys are noticing, you know? And so like, it's important. When Mary J. Blige gets a divorce and has to pay her ex-husband alimony,
women hate
we don't like that.
When
Kelly Clarkson
women don't like
has
that.
to now pay her ex-husband $200,000 a month in alimony, we don't like that shit. But when Dr. Dre's wife
get half that billion,
millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, and she gets 300. When Brittany Renner gets $200,000 a month from PJ Washington just for being a baby mama, like she gets round of applause. So like, it is pressure, because you owe something back for all this value that you demand from him, all this value that you won't settle for less than, all this value that you deserve. Like, so it's accountability.